What's good? It's your boy Fanon. Okay, I'm going to talk about the middleweight division this morning and Daniel Jacobs and Jermall Charlo. As we know, Daniel Jacobs has a fight with Sergey Deverenchenko coming up this weekend for the IBF 160-pound title that was I'm not sure, was it stripped? I think it was stripped, not vacated, from Gennady Golovkin for not fighting Deverenchenko. So in the lead up to it, we got Daniel Jacobs talking a good amount of smack about Jermall Charlo. and I don't believe it. But let me go through what he said. Before I do that, though, thank you everybody for tuning into the channel. Subscribers, welcome back. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, thank you everybody that supports the channel on Super Chat, Venmo, listening to the commercials and the videos. It's much appreciated. And once again, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. So let me go through what he said about Jermall Charlo. Now, if you guys remember back a few months ago, I can't remember I think it might have been before the Luis Ortiz fight, but it was a fight that was taking place in New York, and Jermall Charlo and Jermell Charlo were going kind of nuts in the about Daniel Jacobs and saying where's he at and all kind of different stuff. Hope you guys are. If you don't know, you can go check it out on. I'm sure it's like on Fight Hype or somebody has that video up. You can do the research and check it out. But anyway, so Daniel Jacobs at a point walked up to Jermall Charlo and they kind of went back and forth. And I think that Daniel Jacobs, I'm split between whether Danny Jacobs thinks because Jermall Charlo was a little more quiet, because there's a lot of people at the time that were arguing about whether or not Daniel Jacobs had punked Jermall Charlo. I personally just think the dude was sitting there just being quiet and staring the guy down. Really didn't let him, just sit back and kind of was a little bit more mellow. But anyway, that was a big conversation going on. So this is what the quote is for him. He said, "I don't think he would take it," talking about Charlo taking a fight with Jacobs. He said, "I don't think he would take it because you got to understand the proof is in the pudding. He called me out, or he said a couple things about me, and then once I retaliated, you heard no more. When was the last time you heard Jermall Charlo say something about Daniel Jacobs? Whereas before I tamed the lion, there was a whole bunch of bark in the jungle. Now the jungle's deserted, nothing but birds, nothing but giraffes and mermaids. And mermaids don't live in the jungle." Jacobs jokingly referred to lions only, the mantra of Jermall Charlo and his twin brother Jermell Charlo, the WBC super welterweight champion. Okay, you never heard anything after that, especially not a call out. In fact, when you heard what you heard him say was, "Well, the Jacobs fight will come. It's not going to come now. It's going to come in the future. I'm not saying how far, but once my career is up, that fight is going to happen. You can't go from A to B like that. So that's that." Right. Then Jacobs he considers himself one of the best, or one of the most feared in the division. And not taking nothing away from Willie Monroe, but you've got to understand that if you got a title, if you're going to claim this title, you've got to fight somebody that's at least the fans can say is a 50-50 fight. And I don't know if the fans will say that this is a 50-50 fight. I believe that he'll still have trouble with Willie Monroe because his feet aren't that educated, in my opinion, but his power is really good, and he's vicious when it comes to being inside the ring. So he comes forward. But if Willie Monroe can truly be himself and do the things that he wants to do and moves and gets a good feel with that jab popping back and forth, I think it'll be a competitive fight. If Monroe can protect himself and protect that chin, I think it'll be an interesting fight, and the fans will still be able to gauge where Jermall Charlo is in the middleweight division. It's not a real bad fight for me, but it's a fight where if you're going to claim a title, you're going to be like, come on now. Yeah, man, Daniel Jacobs, you just fought Maurice Selecki. Wasn't that the dude he fought, Maurice Selecki? Yeah, whatever, man. But anyway, I will say that Daniel Jacobs is in a good fight this weekend with Deverenchenko, and he'd be best put in his mind to focusing on that fight. Now, there's a lot of people that think that could be an upset or not an upset. I mean, if it's a close fight, I wouldn't call Deverenchenko beating Daniel Jacobs what do you call it? I wouldn't call it an upset, but I would call, it would definitely set things back. Now, as far as Jermall Charlo and Daniel Jacobs, here's my thing. Let me go through what he said, what he's claiming that Jermall Charlo said. That, the Jacobs fight will come. It's not going to come now. It's going to come in the future. I'm not saying how far, but once my career is up, this fight is going to happen. Right? That's him paraphrasing him. But that's the truth. And because you got Daniel Jacobs fighting. Number one, Daniel Jacobs is more than likely going to be fighting on DAZN. I know this fight is on HBO, but more than likely Daniel Jacobs is going to be fighting on DAZN. I've never heard Daniel Jacobs in any big hurry to fight Jermall Charlo. But I think there's something that Eddie Hearn said about any fighter, and I don't know whether he actually has the authority within DAZN, because sometimes Eddie Hearn acts like he's the president of DAZN. And I didn't hear that he was that. But the way that he talks, you would swear he was like the CEO of boxing, of DAZN boxing. And what he said was that any major fighter that's going to fight on DAZN has to sign a deal with DAZN. So you have Daniel Jacobs, and I'm not sure if Daniel Jacobs is still advised by Al Heyman or what the situation is. But is he going to, more than likely, I would suspect that he would be going over to DAZN. Because now, if he wins, if he does or if he doesn't win the fight against Deverenchenko, because you have Canelo Alvarez there at middleweight. You have, who's the WBO champion that fought that won the title. Demetrius Andrade is over there. So two of the belts are with fighters that are fighting with DAZN. That is if, of course, Canelo Alvarez continues to fight at 160 pounds. I have a suspicion that he might try to find a way to stay up there at 168 to get away from Charlo, but that might be where Danny Jacobs goes. I don't really think, but as far as Jermall Charlo clearly has his eyes on the WBC belt. And I'm not sure exactly when Jermall Charlo was supposed to be talking about fighting Danny Jacobs a lot. Daniel Jacobs don't got a belt, doesn't have a belt yet. Now, if he's not asking for that fight when Daniel Jacobs gets a belt, that might be something different. But still, he's ranked in the WBC. And he's trying to get in the best, quite honestly, the best shot that Jermall Charlo has at getting a belt might, anytime soon, really might be with the WBC. If Canelo Alvarez can get his hands on some, what has he got? What's he fighting for, the WBA regular? I think he's fighting for the WBA regular title at 168. So Jermall Charlo, Canelo Alvarez might consider keeping the WBA 168 pound title if he can get past Rocky Fielding, and then that would leave Jermall Charlo probably fighting not this fight, but the next fight with somebody for the WBC title, because he was mandated to fight Jermall Charlo, but Jermall Charlo he was mandated to fight Gennady Golovkin for a shot at Canelo Alvarez, but Gennady, as of the time of this video, who knows what Gennady Golovkin is going to do. So this is a kind of a mixed up picture at 160 pounds. I put absolutely no stock whatsoever in Jermall Charlo trying to duck or, being afraid of Daniel Jacobs. Personally, I think Jermall Charlo, I think he'll beat Jermall. I think he'll beat Daniel Jacobs in a good fight. In a good fight. I'm not thinking this. I don't think this is a scenario with any of these middleweights where there's one middleweight that literally is going to blow away every other middleweight. I think every middleweight that's out there has a chance in a fight. Top middleweight. I think every top middleweight has a chance to win a fight against the other top middleweights. And the middleweights that I'm talking about are Daniel Jacobs, Demetrius Andrade, at this moment, Sergey Derevyanchenko, Gennady Golovkin, Canelo Alvarez, and Jermall Charlo. But the guy that I think is probably has the most upside of all those guys and would really has a chance of, he has a chance of clipping and knocking out every one of them is Jermall Charlo. So I'm not putting too much into what Daniel Jacobs said about him taming him. Man, one conversation in the back hallway in New York City, after a fight in New York City. I think it might even have been against whoever that fight was, whoever was fighting. Maybe it was Adrian Bronner's Vargas. Could have been that fight. But anyway, that's just some conversation going on in the back of the just going on after a fight, man. Whatever's clever with that nonsense. But anyway, man, I appreciate you guys listening to the video. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe and hit the bell icon. And with that, I'm out. Peace.